Good evening, Kingston. My name is Pamela Grant. I'm the facilitator and strategic advisor for the Independent Police Oversight Review. I'm here with the team. We've been across the province, coming a little bit to the end of our public consultations. Our private and by invitation consultations continue. I'd like to welcome you all and indicate our sincere appreciation for you taking time out. I know the weather hasn't been great and there are other priorities, but the conversation this evening, and it is hopefully going to be a candid and open conversation that we have, is an important one about police or civilian police oversight in this province. And that is what the review is here to speak to and to hear from you, more importantly, about. I'm not going to spend too much time speaking to you at this point. We're going to adjust our normal approach a little differently tonight because there are fewer of us, but what that means is that we perhaps can do a deeper dive in the conversation and have a much more detailed conversation. But before I speak to that, we will hear from Justice Tulloch, who leads and has been leading the review, to speak for a few minutes. My colleague Danielle Dowdy will take you through the program for the night. We do hope that you will be able to work as a group. You're in 3 nice clusters at the moment, and have your groups work on the questions that you see on the table. I'd like to remind you that on the table there's a full SCAP, which is the sign-in sheet. Everyone who participates in our consultations will receive a link upon the release of the report at the end of March. And we need your emails for that so that you will have your very own copy of the report. So it's quite critical that you do complete that so that we can actually see and read your email address, because we don't want it to bounce back. All right, so without further ado, I'll ask Justice Tulloch to open up this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pamela. Good evening to everyone. My name is Michael Tulloch. I am a judge from the Court of Appeal for Ontario, and here to hear from the members of the public with respect to the issues that are relevant to the mandate that we're currently reviewing, and that is we are looking at the 3 oversight bodies: the SIU, the OIPRD, and the OCPC, with a view to determine how best to enhance their transparency, their accountability, and their effectiveness. Before we get into that, though, I want to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional Anishinaabe yeah. No disrespect to the Indigenous peoples of this land. I absolutely respect them. So I'm acknowledging that we're on their territory, the Anishinaabe as well as the Haudenosaunee territories. I'm challenged, as you guys can well aware, linguistically and by way of diction, but anyway. So these lands were the meeting place for several Indigenous nations in the area, and by acknowledging this, we're acknowledging the importance and the significance of the traditions of the Indigenous peoples. So by way of background, on April 29th, 2016, I was appointed by the provincial government to lead an independent review of the 3 civilian agencies that oversee police conduct in the province of Ontario. As indicated earlier, they are the SIU, or the Special Investigations Unit, the Office of the Independent Police Review Director, or the OIPRD, and the Ontario Civilian Police Commission, or what is known as the OCPC. Since my appointment, I have assembled a team of experts, lawyers, and policy advisors to assist me. A number of them are here with me this afternoon. And together, we've held a number of consultations with public and private stakeholders throughout the province. This include areas within the GTA, Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, Sudbury, as well as Ottawa. A few weeks ago, we were also in Windsor and London, and I will be holding additional consultations later on this week in the GTA, as well as Kitchener, Kenora, and other parts of the north. But we're close to the end of our consultation periods. I'm consulting broadly and intend to draw on what I've learned to make recommendations to enhance the transparency and the accountability of the oversight bodies. And this means that we want to ensure that we make recommendations which will make the system and these bodies more effective, more efficient, more responsive to all the stakeholders' concerns, as well as to engender the public confidence that is needed for any kind of police and civilian oversight system. By March 31st, 2017, I will submit my final report to the government and also to the public at large. So as mentioned, the focus of this review is on the three civilian police oversight bodies, the SIU, the OIPRD, and the OCPC. The SIU is a civilian law enforcement agency independent of the police, which conducts criminal investigations into circumstances involving police and civilians that have resulted in serious injury, death, or allegations of sexual assault. The OIPRD is mandated to receive, manage, and oversee all public complaints about the conduct, policies, and services of police in Ontario. In addition, the OIPRD also has the power to examine issues of a systemic nature that may arise from complaints about the police and make recommendations addressing them. And finally, the OCPC is primarily an adjudicative body. Its mandate, among other things, is to conduct hearings and adjudicate disputes related to police disciplinary decisions, budget disputes between the municipal councils and police services boards, and disputes related to the provision of police services. The OCPC can also conduct investigations into the conduct of police services boards, as well as their members and police officers. Now, with that background in mind about the review and the civilian police oversight agencies, I want to take this opportunity this evening to hear from members of the public. This review is an independent review, and what that means is that I'm free to critically examine how these oversight bodies operate. Meeting with you, members of the public, is a crucial part of this process. I'm grateful that you have taken the time to meet with me today, and I appreciate that speaking about some of these issues may be difficult for some, but it is essential that a review of this kind be as thorough as possible, and that as the independent reviewer, I consider all relevant information from a variety of perspectives. I can assure you that I will do exactly that, so long as you participate and offer me your perspectives. So again, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight to share your thoughts, experiences, and recommendations. And I assure you that in this process, you will all be heard. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to go really quickly through our agenda for this evening, and then we'll get started. So just as a disclaimer, we are not looking at past cases that have already been decided. Past judgments, past cases, we do want to hear them. If you do have an experience, it's really important for us to hear in terms of context for the recommendations that we'll be doing. But we won't be able to actually open up a case and make another judgment or finding. So just as a disclaimer for everyone. So the way that this works, this introduction, which we're doing right now, then we're going to go right into the questions. Everyone should have questions at the table. We're going to ask you to work through those questions and discuss them for 45 minutes. And following that, there's going to be a report back where you let us know what was discussed, what your recommendations are. And following that, it's a bit of an open mic. So if you have any anything that you'd like to share that wasn't captured, then that's your opportunity to let us know. And our last point is that we are on social media. So we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube as well. All of our meetings are recorded. At the back of the room, you'll see a camera, and the cameraman, Dylan, is waving. If you don't want to be on camera, just let us know, and we'll make sure that we make a note to not capture you on camera. We'll also be tweeting your comments. Myself, Matthew wave. If you see Matthew taking your picture and doing something on his phone, he's probably tweeting a comment that you made. Also Peter Rehak, who's at the back of the room, he's also taking photos that we put up on our Instagram account. Again, if you don't want your photo taken or your comments used, not an issue at all, just let us know and we will move on. But you can follow us along at any of our social media platforms, and we're tweeting under the hashtag BeHeardON, ON's for Ontario. So if you click on that, you can also see some of the past conversations from the other meetings that we've had. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Danielle and Justice Tulloch. So as Danielle was saying, that each table should have a number of question sheets. There are 11 questions, and we're asking you to take the next 45 minutes to, as a group, discuss the questions, and we'll be coming around to, check with you to see if there are any specific questions that you may have in terms of process, but not to in any way inform your answers. And then the report back will be, because we have a nice small but mighty group tonight, we can literally allow each table, quite a bit of time, 5-10 minutes to feedback on their answers, and then we can also allow time, as Daniel has suggested, for further feedback if at the point that your table is selected for feedback, all of the points are not raised. There'll be an opportunity to ensure that everybody is heard in terms of specific items or points that they'd like to make. I'd also like to indicate that there are many people that you may know and be in touch with over the next little while who wouldn't have had a chance to be here tonight and wouldn't have had a chance to give their input live. There is the opportunity for individuals before the end of this month to make comments, and they don't need to be in any way formal. They can be point form by going to our website, www.policeoversightreview.ca, and clicking on Be Heard, and what pops up is the email address that you can also go directly to, info@policeoversightreview.ca, and you can just key in, they can just key in any comments that you come up with over the next little while before the 30th of November. So there are a number of different opportunities for there to be feedback for those who are in the room and those who are not. So I'm going to press the button in about a second as soon as I start talking, and there'll be 45 minutes. I will come around and ask for the designated person who will report back. We'll be passing a mic around to each table, and you'll have your 5 to 10 minutes to report back. Okay? Here we go. 45 minutes. Thank you. So we're about to start with table 1 and Kalila. So I'm putting the timer to 10 minutes max, and feel free to use your time strategically. You can pass the mic within the 10 minutes, and then I'll go over to table 2 with Bob and Michelle over here, and then Jason at table 3. So that'll be the order. So if you can pass the mic on to each other, that would be great. So go ahead, Kalila.
Hi. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure it was on. That was scary. Okay. So do you just want me to run through the responses we had and then let anybody comment? Okay. So as far as being aware of the 3 agencies, some people were aware of them, some were not. The SIU was the only one that people were aware of. And nobody at our table, except one, had any contact with any of those agencies so far. Although the comment was made that they wish they had known, so then they would have maybe used that venue to address some issues that we've had with the police. Good experiences, helpful constables, dealing with theft and as a personal experience, having police officers go easy on you when you might not have a sticker on your plate or something like that. And the OPP was mentioned as being very helpful, the experience as being very positive and being very helpful in the Kingston community on the highways, and seeing officers volunteering within the community. Bad experiences, being tailed in a car repeatedly, being spoken to disrespectfully or aggressively, and then when asking the officers for ID, the officer refusing. The issue was brought up of police officers in vehicles that are completely unidentifiable. So not just that they're unmarked and they have the lights that in some way would show that they're a police officer's vehicle, but there being nothing at all that would identify it that way, and people's experiences with being stopped. And then also being stopped and told directly by the police officer that it was because the driver was black, and there had been a report of a shootout between cars and the drivers of the car were black. Even though the vehicle was occupied by a family. Okay. So nobody had reported any of their bad experiences with the police. They didn't know the means by which to do so, and didn't want to report an incident with the police to police, especially in a city that's smaller like Kingston. As far as encouraging others to report to the police, we said yes, and it depends. So as far as saying yes, we would encourage others to report the incidences or bad experiences. It's important that these incidents are recorded. It helps to improve future policing and training, and it also improves accountability. People saying it depends. There's a fear of being targeted or reprisal for filing a report against a police officer. The fear of being discriminated against, believing that nothing will happen anyways, even if you do report. And then also, if in the incidents where somebody might be the partner or the ex-partner of a police officer, not feeling comfortable going to the police to report an incident that involves a police officer, just feeling that officers will know each other, they'll protect each other first, and looking at the idea of within policing or police officers possibly fearing bullying or isolation as an employee, and therefore not wanting to report incidences. Is that number 6? Number 5? Okay. So for the question of the openness of oversight agencies, again, we said no. Okay, so we said no, there's not enough openness. You just don't hear about it or read about it to the extent that it appears there are enough incidences. So the question was raised as to why Kingston was chosen. And although there are, I guess, have been SIU investigations here, just not even being aware of it, even though it isn't that large of a community. And then as far as improving, we said more education about the agency, their role, and how to contact them and the procedure that they go through in an investigation. And also education, age-appropriate education for students in junior high and high school that could help to make them aware and also dispel myths or fears that they might have about policing, police officers, and that whole investigation. And we said that even though it's students or in high school or junior high school might not themselves have had an incident with the police, but they could have family members or community members who have, and so it's still important to be able to make them aware of what the procedures are, what the processes are for investigations. So for making the names of police officers public, we said yes and no. So for yes, we said for transparency and accountability. And also if an officer is investigated and it's not their name is not public, there are still people in the public who would be aware of the investigation. And so it could also work to clear that officer's name by making it public that this officer has been investigated and was not charged for these reasons. And so that increases the accountability and the transparency of the force, given the role that they have and the authority that police officers have in our society. The no side was that it really affects and can ruin an officer's reputation and leave them open to attack or being targeted, as well as their families. So we said, yes, police officers should work as investigators at the SIU because one of them is at our table. And we felt compelled to say that, but also because they have experience dealing with police. They have insight into policing and police culture, and they have investigative training. On the no side, we felt police officers investigating their own will be targeted or bullied or feel peer pressure. It would be uncomfortable to investigate your peers, your colleagues, and they would have a possible target on their back, which would compromise their investigation or possibly lead them to making certain findings because of they're investigating their own colleagues or peers. We feel data should be collected on race, gender, age, and mental health, and it should be used to evaluate, assess, and reassess all of the investigations and the findings. It's a way to collect data that you can use to look for issues with systemic issues, so systemic discrimination, patterns, and trends that might exist, and that can then lead to the assessment and the reevaluation in order to improve these agencies and their procedures and lead to better results. Any other recommendations on how to improve table?
Okay, thank you. I'll take it for you. Are you covering your face?
Sure, you talk.
I'm really happy to be here, and I think it's great to have better communication. I think that's what it comes down to. There's a lot of misunderstanding and mistrust. I've really can't say I've had a bad experience at all with the police. I believe, though, that we're looking at a bigger picture and how we can move forward. I think we can learn from United States. I kind of see being in Kingston, looking at Toronto and even Ottawa, how things are moving in a direction that we want to focus on prevention. So one of the things that catches me with the oversight, it seems to already be when something has happened, but maybe the police in terms of the outreach of and prevention to make things, and so that the community knows where the police are going and their ideas and their, the society's changing and the police are part of that society, right? So we're all in this together. So one of the things is there a prevention? I have that question in terms of their outreach, like even columns in the newspaper, where they're going, their learning and their process, so that we can feel like we are connected in this together to improve the society. I think the one question that I have, I'm not really, I'm very unfamiliar with all of this actually, but I'm just wondering if there's some perception in the public of a conflict of interest with the police being on the SIU and ORPRD. I mean, there's the reality and then there's the perception of reality, which I think are two important things to consider. So I just wanted to ask that question. Maybe somebody has an answer for that. I also think the issues in law enforcement can't be answered just by law enforcement, especially as we see a lot in the area of domestic violence and how challenging that is. It's very, like the issues that we're facing are not simple and they're very complicated, and how the police are working with other agencies in terms of domestic violence or violence in the community, certain communities, or disadvantaged communities. So I just think this is a good forum for we could do this more often. I think it would be a regular thing instead of just as a one-time deal, because this is an ongoing process of learning, and I've never been a police officer, so I have no idea what it's like, and I'm not in a racially or a disadvantaged situation, or to really give feedback back in that way. So I'm just giving a kind of general thing that I hope we really don't end up like going in the direction of the United States, and how polarized the police are from the communities, and how we should focus more on the prevention and look at the complexity of the issues instead of really looking at the police, they're bad and somebody's good. But we're all in this together. We all want to live in a safe world and a society that's more caring and more understanding. And that's it.
Thanks, Michelle. Bob, did you want to add anything to that?
I specifically came tonight to find out about the SIU. After I retired, I became interested in politics, et cetera, and I started subscribing to the Toronto Star. And the more I read about the SIU, the more I wanted to read about the SIU, and I'm telling you, I'm biased against the SIU. I really am, and I want to make that very plain, because I think it's outrageous, some of the things that the SIU does. They stonewall the public. And there's a case in today's Star where a woman who was shot accidentally, not involved in the altercation at all, and she simply wanted to know who shot me. Well, there's no way they're going to tell her, but she's pushing it through the Star, and eventually she's going to find out. And when the public asks the SIU, they just say sorry. They stonewall the people. So that's my position. I thought I might learn something, and as I say, I want to make it clear I'm biased.
Sure, I'll be very brief. My name is Dave Rowans, and arrived a little late, but I was looking at a YouTube video on social anxiety, and it was one of these 12, I was the 12th person to view it today, I guess, but I was cautioned about, just as you know, anything you say can be held against you. No good deed goes unpunished. But well, we're friendly here, but I think that's the problem, is that the problem isn't the problem. The problem is that nobody wants to be hung out to dry, and victims do get discredited. And the police, in many cases, are victims, particularly ones that don't perhaps fit into the brotherhood, or the tribe. Let's call it what it is. But it's beautiful in that we're even talking about it. I don't think anybody, even 5 years ago, could have envisioned that this conversation would be happening publicly and openly. And so when I finally arrived, I just looked at my YouTube thing again here, and it's kind of funny. This one's about the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah, I just read what it says here. It's kind of funny. Not that this is my Bible. I think we all have our belief systems, but having a sense of humor about everything, no matter how badly, whether your name's Jose Alejandro Vivar or whatever, just learning, as I'm kind of learning the hard way, about seeing the light in the other, and realizing that everybody's evolving, and hopefully we all will be raising consciousness enough through your auspices and your good deeds. And you're not actually, I don't even like the word good and bad. I kind of cognitive distortions and all or nothing. I think that kind of mentality, which has been entrenched and perpetrated in Kingston for many, many generations, it seems to be today a drawing point. So the humor thing was about Bermuda Triangle, scary secrets discovered. What do we know? Anyway, it's the National Geographic. Maybe I'll watch it, but thanks for letting me have my little dipsy doodling here, and really thank you everybody for even the unseen. I mean, if you believe it or not, Kingston's got a lot of, as Robertson Davies, our Week Standard editor, used to say, before Post Media, no offense, Paul Godfrey, and Golden Tree Asset Management, but Robertson Davies used to say, Kingston has a lot of light and dark. And let's go with the light, so thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Could you pass the mic over to Jason?
Thank you.
Please? Thank you.
Thank you for volunteering me.
You're welcome.
I'll touch on what I can, and the rest of the table will kind of pick up where I dropped the ball. Everyone here is well aware of the three different agencies that oversee the police. In regards to good or bad experiences with the police, we all work with the police. So our good and bad are internal, as opposed to probably the public's, which would be on the streets. Question 3 doesn't probably apply to us as much as it would to the public. And if question 4, if someone had a bad experience with the police, would you encourage them to report it? Why or why not? I would definitely encourage them to follow up on that, and to seek some kind of resolution or answer. What was the issue? Where did things go wrong? What was the problem? How could we learn? How could we do things better? Right? If things aren't brought forward, things don't change. Do you think the police oversight agencies are open enough about their investigations? I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about that myself. I know I've sat in on several SIU interviews as an association rep, sitting there for the support of the members as the SIU conduct their investigations. How much is and is not released to the public? I honestly try to avoid the media because I find it just gets frustrating and brings you down. And knowing what I know from my own perspective, I don't feel that I need to read about it in the paper because I tend to know what's going on. I'll kind of skip down to number 7. Should names of police officers who were investigated by the SIU be made public even when the SIU decide not to charge them? Why or why not? My own personal opinion on this is, if it was just me, my name being released to the public, I personally wouldn't have an issue with that. But it's not just me, it's my parents, my wife, my kids, their school, their coworkers. If nothing has been, no charges have been brought against an officer or against anyone, I don't think there should be that media splash or that public shaming or whatever you might want to call it. Whereas if charges are laid, police officers shouldn't be treated any differently than the public. once an information is laid, that information is made public and names are released. So I don't see why there would be a difference. Should former police officers work as investigators at the SIU, OIPRD, OCPC? I would personally again say yes. I think there would be some benefit having an insight to the police culture and an understanding of police procedures, years of experience in that world. Just as I would agree, it's important to have people who don't have that background or that bias or that I don't know, previous membership to the Brotherhood, as someone has already said tonight. But I think that experience is important to at least to be able to lean on and someone to talk to about, you know, have you ever experienced this kind of thing? What are your thoughts on this? Should SIU, OIPRD, OCPC collect data on things like race, gender, age, mental health? I'm going to avoid that question. That just seems loaded. I want to say collect information on all things, but I wouldn't specify those particular things. I wouldn't set them apart from any other. But yeah. Anything?
I think at our table we just decided we're going to pass the mic around and each of us touch on a few points that are on the page. I'm Dave McLean. I'm a police officer in Cornwall. Made the trek down here to participate in this tonight. I'm also the so I'm a sergeant in Cornwall. I'm the president of the Cornwall Police Association, and I'm also a board member on the Police Association of Ontario. So I wear 3 hats, and I could say 4 because I'm also a member of the community, and so is my family. And touching on a few points, you know, I'll skip through the ones that I'd like to comment on. One is number 4, and I think any of us in this room would encourage somebody that has a bad experience with police to bring it forward. You know, you hear the stories of the good old days in policing, and those are long gone. I can say in the 15 years I've been a police officer, I've had a very positive experience in impacting my community in a positive way. And encouraging people to bring forward their complaints, because the last thing a police officer wants is a black mark on our profession. We don't want that, and we want openness and transparency. We truly do. And so I know when I have to wear 3 hats in Cornwall, there are times where it's very difficult when I'm a supervisor hearing a complaint, knowing I'm also the association president and have to possibly represent somebody who may not have possibly offered the best customer service to somebody in our community. But I do that because it's the right thing to do. And sometimes we all, and no matter what profession, need some guidance. And it's important for us to keep perspective and to be honest with ourselves that none of us are perfect. And in our profession, we are striving through processes like this and through engagement with government and residents that we talk about the issues like we are here and have some resolve as we move forward in dealing with them. So absolutely, encouraging people to bring an issue forward and have discussion or a complaint so that it can be dealt with is something that if you speak to anybody in our shoes, absolutely we would encourage. The police oversight agencies, do you think they're open enough about their investigations? I think it's very difficult to be open about an investigation when it's taking place. Any police investigation is very closed, it's very secretive, and there's a reason for that. We cannot allow an investigation to be contaminated before it gets to a court to be heard. And it's extremely important that the investigations are as impartial as possible and that the true facts of what has taken place, no matter what it is, get to the proper people to be heard in a proper fashion. And I've always explained to the public when they've come to me for advice about a case is we are simply, when we're charging somebody, we are simply the couriers of the information. That's all we are. We carry this information through a pouch. It's literally a pouch that goes to our court service. And it's where the court makes a decision or a finding on what we present to them. And sometimes that is a guilty and sometimes that is a not guilty. But that's not up to me as a police officer to decide. And as investigators for the SIU, it's extremely important the SIU investigators do their job and do it to the best interest of the case itself. And sometimes as police officer, I may not be satisfied with the outcome, and sometimes as the public, they may not be satisfied with the outcome. But I would hope that an SIU investigator would look at a matter in the most neutral way possible. And I would also hope that that investigator has all the tools in the toolbox to be able to conduct that investigation fairly for everybody involved, so that when it is complete, perhaps victims' families have resolve, perhaps somebody who had a poor interaction with police where they were injured have the facts and the explanation as to why police may have acted in a certain way, or if a police officer is charged, that why that police officer was charged, and hopefully corrective measures one way or another can be taken in a case like that. Yes, I think the cases need to be closed until they have been heard before an appropriate hearings officer or appropriate court. Sorry, excuse me. In terms of what information the public should know after an SIU investigation, they need to know the facts. They need to know exactly what happened. I think what goes part and parcel of that, and I kind of skipped to the end question, and as a police officer, my biggest complaint, and I think the public would agree, and what really creates a huge problem is a backlog and a long timeline in these investigations. As time goes on, there becomes more distrust in the process where, and I can tell you as a police officer, a turnover for a case where I'm presented with a suspect and witnesses and the evidence, generally these cases get turned over to the courts fairly quickly in a very short timeline so that they can be heard. Unfortunately, our court system is backlogged, and that's a whole different case that we could go into. But when it comes to SIU, my expectation as an association representative is I want this matter held or heard, as quickly as possible, for the public's sake and also for my officer's sake. They have to go back to their job the next day with this cloud hanging over their head of an investigation, and it's not fun times. I know I've had that myself in an incident where ultimately I was cleared, but
15 seconds.
15 seconds, okay. So it's just something that, for in that case, yes, we need to have some closure or some secrecy until the investigation's out. And then should former police officers work as investigators, absolutely, I think there's some great benefit to that, and something to be said when we have investigators from various fields working together. But a police background is definitely a benefit to a team setting working on investigations. I'll pass it to Bruce.
Dave took up all my time, so I'll keep it short. I've actually had the opportunity just to...
I've exercised my discretion to give you additional time.
So you're not off the hook.
So you go ahead.
No, I've been fortunate enough. I've traveled around the province to several of these meetings, and I applaud everyone for coming out tonight, because that's the importance of being here. Is from the police perspective, we want to hear from the community. What are we doing well? What are we not doing well? And what can we improve on? I think some of the message gets lost in the transition. Ontario has the most oversight in the country as far as the province goes, and I would say in North America in general terms, but we're not doing it well. And I think what by everyone showing up tonight here, Toronto, and around the province, is what we're trying to do is do it to the best of our ability, do it better, so that we have that transparency and accountability that you as citizens expect out of us as the police. And that's important to us. And that's why we're here, to listen to our communities, to hear what they have to say, to see what we can do better, both internally and through government and through regulations or legislation. That's what we need going forward, and that's what we want. We want to work with the public. We don't like those bad apples that we have, but the only way we're going to fix that is by having the best system we can have for the police through the SIU, through the public complaint with the OIPRD, and the OCPC process. So if we can do it better, that's what we're working with Justice Tulloch and his group and our communities to make sure that we do the best we can, have the best oversight system we can so that everyone trusts the system and know that it's a fair system for everyone.
Thank you, Bruce. Cam, are you going to say a few things? Yeah.
I'll just be very quick. I just want to thank everybody that did come out tonight, and Justice Tulloch and his team for coming to Kingston and providing us this opportunity. I'm the president of the Kingston Police Association, so any oversight really has an important effect on our members at the police. So any way that it can be improved will be greatly appreciated. And I just wanted to touch on the names being released. It's something that I have a real hard time with. Jay touched on it, but I think it's a real breach of the officer's privacy. We are also citizens, and this is Kingston. I know my neighbors, I know my teachers, and my family are here, and to have my name put out in the media for something that I may be cleared of a year and a half down the road is really troubling for me. It's a double standard that other citizens are protected against that, and officers are innocent until proven guilty, and by having their name put out in the media might create the sense that they're already guilty before the investigation's even taken place. If they are charged, obviously their name would be released like anyone else. And I don't see it as a benefit to society as a whole. It may bring some peace to a family, which I can completely understand if they were in a situation with a loved one that was hurt or killed by a police officer. But for all of society, I don't see the global benefit for that. And just again, Kingston's a small town where we do know a lot of people, and it could have a much more negative effect than maybe in a larger center type thing. So again, thanks for everybody for coming then.
Thank you very much, Cam. And this table, you're all good? Okay, so thank you everyone for your contribution. I'll take them. Thank you. Thank you for your contributions, and what I want to just remind you of is to ensure that everybody has signed the sign-in sheet, so we have your email addresses to receive the report. And also remind you that if any additional thoughts and comments come to you or through you from friends, family, colleagues, please, 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 before the end of the month, feel very free to go to our website and click on Be Heard and submit those comments. And of course, you can go to info@policeoversightreview.ca. That's the email address, and key your points in right there. And thank you very, very much, everyone. There's lots of food to eat back there, and I'm going to call on Justice Tulloch to wrap up. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Pam, and I want to thank each and every one of you who are here this evening. Thank you guys for coming out and for sharing your thoughts, your views, and your experiences with us. They are important to us as a team to hear the varying perspectives, which in my view are extremely real to each and every one of you who have spoken. And I can assure you that we will take all of your thoughts, all of your comments and your recommendations, and we will consider them, and we will reflect on them, and ultimately, as you're aware, it's going to be a balancing process, to come up with the recommendations at the end of the day, but it's this process that's going to make it easy for us. It's going to help us to do the job that we need to do. And so by virtue of you being here, it shows your concern. It shows, your commitment to not only a better society, but also a better policing system and a more responsive and responsible oversight system. So again, thank you all for coming, and we look forward to hearing from you in written form if you have additional submissions to give. Thanks.